So Tom Verica, For the People, is in the great tradition of the legal drama, which is one of the oldest television staples that there is, going all the way back to Perry Mason.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, what is it about this show that sets it apart and makes it unique?
Well, we stole a bit from Perry Mason, sort of paying homage to some of the classics. You know, we play a lot with our camera angles, bringing back some of those classic courtroom dramas that were so successful, and honoring playing with slant focus. What separates our show, I think, from, you know, because there's a million legal shows and there's similar territory. This being the Southern District and the federal justice system is a little bit different than most. But we made a concerted effort in our execution, working with our DP, Alan Queso, even when we started designing the sets, to really be able to show the scope and take the viewer kind of on a journey of what these first-year attorneys are up against, and really wanted to create these anthem-like frames and spaces. So that started with the designing of the sets, having hard ceilings, the height of the sets that were in these sound stages, and utilizing every aspect of that to kind of bring forth what one's experience might be when they're suddenly thrust into the federal justice system, and giving them that powerful halls that they are entering.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit about the show. And when you first read the pilot script, I mean, what were some of the things that jumped out at you about it?
Well, I think I knew the writer, Paul William Davies. We had both worked on Scandal together. He was a lawyer, a practicing lawyer for some time, and started writing a few years back. And it had an authenticity. His voice really came through, and he has a kind of an acerbic wit to him. And that's what jumped out at me initially, was the dialogue, and the characters were very rich and very deep. That's what drew me in immediately. You know, on the surface, I think everyone would look at it as it's another law show, but I really saw something different and special about this, and a unique perspective that he had taken. And you know, he set it in the Southern District of New York, which is topically in the news right now, and really wanted to tackle those issues that had historical relevance, from Thurgood Marshall to the Rosenberg case. There's numerous cases that have been tried here, and really wanted to tackle issues that kind of impact everyone across the nation, and not just locally. A lot of law shows deal with kind of defenders or specific cases. So that prospect and that journey really attracted me, the combination of those elements, and really wanted to, I know there are other shows that tackle the Southern District, not too many, but this had an authentic voice based on his experiences, and that's what kind of drew me in.
Now, you were both an executive producer on the show, as well as a director, the producing director on there. So you did the pilot. Take us through the process of directing the pilot, and since you're supposed to set the style and tone for the series, what were your initial ideas for it?
I had a very clear vision. In reading this, and the quality of the writing, and kind of the scope of what this called for, I immediately went to Sidney Lumet, who kind of had a lot of inspiration and feel for what I wanted to portray. And I know The Verdict had a very different tone in which its main journey was, but the scope of what that was up against really kind of jumped out at me right away. So I delved into looking at some of his films, and wanted to really create, put the camera in a place that really spoke to character and point of view, as opposed to just, you know, as oftentimes with the pace of television, you don't have those luxuries to set up those shots and really design those shots. So it was very important to me, in speaking with our DP and our crew, to be very specific and planned about these shots. So I wanted to use prime lenses. and really kind of honor those elements, as well as designed pushes, whether we're lower or higher angles. Those were all very clear visions that we had going in to, again, to take the viewer kind of on the journey of what these people are up against, and really give a subtle nod to what it feels like to be in that system. So yeah, so I think Sidney Lumet had some inspiration for me, and there's elements of classical films, classical courtroom dramas, whether it's Perry Mason, that were effective in its time, and I know they were kind of ahead of its time. So we kind of designed this hybrid of incorporating some of those, not only angles but stylistically.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to bringing on other directors for the show, for the other episodes, I mean, what are you looking for? I mean, you've got a great, mix of lots of TV vets, like people like Mark Tinker and Andrew Bernstein working on this thing. So, I mean, what are you looking for in terms of people to help tell the story of these 6 young lawyers?
Well, I think a lot of it is, some experience. Everybody brings something to it. We also had directors like Nzinga Stewart, who had a very, she comes from the music video world. So, but she works well with actors. Primarily it was the ability to sort of work with actors, delve into the characters, really draw out, as we're discovering in our first season still, what these characters are, who these characters are, and the decisions they make. I have some experience with each of these directors, so I kind of cherry-picked them, to knowing that they would sort of adapt to this style, knowing the style and the commitment that I have in sort of executing this, and a good working relationship that I have with them, that they got on board and got in there and knew, we kind of had some I had a shorthand with, others I walked through a little bit more, but I was very involved with prep with each of the directors and was able to execute our vision.
So let's talk a little bit about that cast. You've got these 6 young lawyers, and there's also a mix of veteran actors, people like Anna Deavere Smith, for instance. Can you talk a bit about finding the right people for these roles?
Yeah, it was a pretty extensive process. We looked, we're based in Los Angeles, and as it turns out, I believe 8 of our 10 actors are from New York. I don't know if that's, there's a feel that that we were very committed to drawing out a flavor in the show, because we knew we weren't going to be shooting there often. We went and shot a few times, but to really kind of bring forth that world and that that sort of life of what New York is. And there's kind of a subtle built-in that Anna Deavere brings, that Hope Davis brings, that Ben Shenkman brings, and Vondie Curtis Hall. And it was, Paul had very specific notions about who these characters were. Anna Deavere, I believe, was the first one cast. She just jumped right away, just jumped out, and we knew that's the kind of actor that we're looking for. People who aren't, don't resort to the tricks that sometimes TV has traps in, and really wanted people who would dig deep and bring out an authenticity to the world. And I think these actors, some of them came to us very quickly. Others, it was probably more of a blank canvas in our younger attorneys than with our veterans. Our veterans really anchor the show, and they ground us.
Well, I mean, speaking of, that blank canvas, I mean, what were you, I guess, because these people have to work together and they have to be engaging in their own rights. I mean, so what were you looking for in terms of these young lawyers? Well,
again, Paul has some very specific notions about the characters. Like Kate Littlejohn was this very kind of anal, overly prepared. And there wasn't anything specific. Well, I don't think we ever said this has to be a blonde woman or an African American. We really we knew we wanted diversity. We knew we wanted a palette that kind of reflects the world we live in. So we kind of, as each piece of the puzzle kind of, we found somebody we liked, we would sort of go off that person. It wasn't like we needed one person and then hinged everyone off that person. In fact, I believe that Susanna Flood may have been may have been the first of the 6 that were cast. So it really, we were kind of open. Our casting director, Linda Lowy, who was phenomenal at finding talent, and we really kind of let her go without any specifics. I think the one, I'm trying to think whether the Sandra character that Paul had an idea. You know, we had this kind of Holly Hunter, this woman who has a lot of fight, and you know, he had this image, I think, of her being kind of smaller in stature, but really kind of robust and a lot of fight in her. So that was probably one of the few characteristics that was pretty specific from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are an actor yourself. I mean, you've got dozens of credits in film and television.
I've been called worse, but yeah.
Well, I mean, how does your background? I mean, you're still a working actor,
Yeah.
so I mean, how does that help you as a director, as a producer, as somebody who looks at scripts?
It's actually, I think, crossed over in ways that I wasn't quite prepared. I think I had the natural ability. In fact, I oftentimes get a pass because as an actor who turns director, I think a lot of actors automatically feel very comfortable that they can trust you. But I had a real, an understanding of character, and was able to articulate from a character standpoint what I felt either the scene was about or the exploration of that in the collaborative process when we're getting it up on its feet. And I think the experience of having done series television as an actor for many years gave me the insight of I was able to extract things, and I had that sort of brain working when I was an actor. I had that desire to move in that direction. So those were elements that I were able to pull in my toolbox. When I got in the position, I recognized and identified the creative process and the journey that needed to happen from an acting standpoint. So when I became part of the prep process and finding locations and assembling a team, it kind of that kind of all rolls downhill, and you have relationships with people that you want to work with, and there's a shorthand that's in there, and they're like-minded. So there's elements of it that when I did start, I didn't know much about budget, except from a director, I just wanted everything. But as a producer, I really was able to learn, and it became a great education since this was the first, Scandal was the first show that I started producing on, to really understand the full scope of what it entails and how money is being allocated and what areas can we maximize, what areas creatively is important for us to spend the money, and what areas can we cut back on.
You mentioned Scandal, and I mean, this is another show that's produced under the banner of Shonda Rhimes, of course, one of the very successful TV producers working today. You've worked with her for a number of years in many capacities. So what is that like? And I mean, what is she doing right that helps these shows have longevity and be so successful?
She just has it. That thing we talk about. She's able to tap into not only the current state of our society, but she just has an amazing ability to tap into individual character and avoiding predictability, finding authenticity, and really kind of getting down on that level that doesn't kind of hit you over the head with the obvious. She and I have a tremendous working relationship. When I started working on Grey's Anatomy, I've directed probably 5 or 6 of her shows now. But the capacity that that she and I got to work with on Scandal really, I think I just get her sensibility. I think she likes my approach to it. I kind of see the footage and see the shots the way she writes them. And it's a great partnership that way. I think she just has a tremendous gift, and I'm constantly amazed when I think I know something. I just directed the series finale of Scandal, the very last episode, and turned over my cut last week. So she gets a hold of that the director's cut in the editing room, and it becomes another part of her writing process. and what she's able to do and how she kind of elevates, because she has something specific in her mind, the storytelling aspect. She just has a tremendous gift of storytelling at each stage of the writing process.
Since you brought up the series finale of Scandal, I did want to ask you about that, since you've been a part of that show for a long time. And as you said, it was the first time you worked in a capacity such as that. What was it like saying goodbye to that show and directing the finale? I won't ask you to spoil it for anybody, but if you could.
I've been trained not to reveal anything. So.
Right.
It was, one of the difficulties. I mean, Shonda has allowed me to grow, and blossom in ways. She was supportive of me directing the pilot and staying for the people to launch that, under the one condition of coming back and doing the series finale of Scandal, because it's a house that I'd worked in forever, and I've gotten very close to that cast. It's a rare company of not only actors and writers but the crew. It was very emotional. It was celebratory. They've had a year knowing that this was coming. That still doesn't take away from the fact that this is a family that we've been together for all this time. And we hear it all the time that we are families that kind of spend all these hours together. But this company of actors and writers and talent that's been assembled here is really, it's just a well-oiled machine. And it was, as much as we knew it was coming and we're prepared for it, that doesn't take away from the emotion. I was kind of in the driver's seat each day as one character would finish their very last scene. So I got to see kind of all these, finale or final moments of each of these actors that I've spent a lot of time discovering with them as we've gone along this journey. So it was celebratory. It was emotional. We finished at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and every single actor was there, and I think just about every writer but Shonda was there, and our last shot was right in the conference room with Pope and Associates, as it should have been, or actually, I'm sorry, Quinn Perkins and Associates. Still trying to get my mind around that, but it was it was our core set, and it was everyone. We didn't want to let it go, so it was very difficult to call cut for the final time.
Well, Tom Verica, thank you so much, and congratulations. It's a wonderful show that you've got here. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too.